Came too far to turn back. The return of the lyricist. Get it together.
You're listening to You Good with Mike Brown, a mental health podcast. I might have a guest, I might not have a guest, but we're going to talk about mental health, and I hope that it's good. Follow me on things at Yo Mike Brown. Peace.
Yo, what's up? It's Mike Brown. Listening to me. I'm recording from the office again. Really quick, there is no issues with Loudspeakers Network. I'm not banned from the studio or anything like that. I was actually out in D.C. yesterday to go see my uncle get married. I went with my dad and my brothers, and we just got back today, and I had to take care of some things. And I usually record on Tuesdays, and since I was out of town, I was like, okay, damn it, I gotta record an episode again in the office, so hopefully this sounds good. And I don't know about the levels, but like I'm looking right now and it's tracking a little too high, so I'm gonna try to talk a little more in volume range, so it's not like blowing out your eardrum. And it's weird. I'm using these headphones that my brother got me for Rainbow Six, and it has like a little mic, so it's weird just like sitting here in the office talking, but it's cool. And also shout out to Jeremiah. Jeremiah is one of the homies who told me that he listened to the last episode and said that it was good, that I stayed on track, and I didn't say like a bunch of times, which is something that I'm really trying to work on in public speaking. And this doesn't really count as public speaking, but I guess it does because I'm speaking to the public, but I'm not in public when I'm doing the speaking. But anyway, this episode for mental health, I kind of want to talk about two things that I know. I might go in other places too. The first thing is marriage/partnership, and the other thing is this nutso dream that I had last night. All right, so start with like marriage and stuff. So seeing my uncle get married was really dope. You know, I grew up with his kids, and I know it says kids, it's weird. We're the same age. You know, my uncle's kids and I, basically my dad and my uncle are like best friends. He's not really like my uncle. He's like, you know, best friends of my father. So it's like, you know, play uncle. But it was just really good to see him happy and with his wife, and just being at that event just meant a lot. Sorry, there's something going on outside. You guys are getting like the most raw version of a podcast episode today. But it was just great to see him married, and it's you know, things I think about too, just like marriage and partnership and how important that is. I'm kind of coming to the terms of the fact of being my own entity, in the sense of like, I know there's so many people who are like super single and they're like, I'm born alone and I'll die alone and I don't need anybody. And I've never been like that. I've always felt that what I can offer to the world only matters if another person is, you know, positively like inspired or affected by it. So like, for instance, like doing comedy, it's like, yeah, I want to make people laugh, but it's in the deeper sense of it, it's if someone's having a bad day or something, I want them to be able to like have this entertainment and have some joy to their life. And even though I'm going through like my trials and tribulations, at least if we'd had ever met and we can just talk about something that I made, and it could be like, man, I'm a fan of that thing, man, you know, how'd you come up with that? And I can just like talk about that thing. And I know it sounds very like self-aggrandizing or whatever, but it's like, hey, this is a thing that I spent time on for someone to enjoy, and if you'd enjoy it and, you know, we meet up, it's just dope to have that thing in common, you know. The same way like how people might be into superheroes or like comic books or anything like that. It's like that, but also comedy. So anyway, in the marriage sense, seeing them get married, my uncle and his wife, there was a part of the ceremony where after, you know, the bride and groom said I do, the officiant was basically like, okay, now all of you people here at the wedding who are friends and family of this couple, are you ready to, you know, help them root for them, stay with them through this process and all these things with their new life ahead. And like we all kind of said yes. And it was like a weird thing because like, you go to a wedding and you're like, man, I'm not supposed to be asking questions here. I'm just supposed to be eating, chilling, showing some love for the family. But I'm not supposed to be on called to task. And it was just really nice. And it just kind of reminded me of when I went into the hospital, when I took myself in, and how like lucky I was and blessed I was to have someone, have my lady just like look out for me. And I know I could have like done that thing myself because I know people who went into the hospital by themselves and made it out and made their lives continue. But I do worry about myself being a burden, and I also think about the happy notion of, oh, well, if I'm going through something, if I get married, I don't gotta go through it alone. I got somebody, kind of like that I guess like that misery loves company thing, but it's not misery, because it's like, my life isn't misery. Like, there's a lot of great things that go on, but my super pessimistic attitude sometimes, and knowing that anything can just fail at any moment, I try not to get too excited, to keep my own happiness and my expectations in check. But man, marriage seems dope, man. Like Jeremiah and his wife are just super cool, and they're just like great. And I'm not saying that because Jeremiah's listening, but you already know how I feel about you guys. Like Rod and Karen, from what I see from the outside, it's just like so dope to have a podcast and business and life together where you're working together and living together and you are like the dynamic duo. I think that's just so dope. But also what scares me is that, like, as I'm kind of just leaning into more of my artistry and just being like honest and open and having fun and just trying to lead with love, I'm also like kind of finding myself again. And it's weird to kind of like discover myself again, in a sense of, this last week I did 3 stand-up shows, and I usually don't like talk about the shows that I do on a podcast because I really don't like asking people for spots. I think that I'm funny and that someone would ask me, and people do, but I'm just not the guy that's out there like that. I think I'm just like built differently, and what I mean by that is that I love to do stand-up, and I think I'm hilarious, but I also have sometimes this low self-esteem to ask. Or I might think highly about myself with that quote-unquote toxic masculinity where I'm like, I'm not going to ask anybody to get up and do what I do. You should know what it is. And that's not helpful either. But I did 3 shows last week. The first show was... Where was that first show at? The first show was in Brooklyn, and it was dope. Came through, murdered the situation. I knew the jokes I was going to do. I was thinking about it for like a good week, and I looked over my notes, and I was still playing with things and just crushed it. Then I did another spot on Friday at this bar, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because I smoked a little bit before I went on stage. Oh, not before I went on stage, before I left the apartment to go to the show, or if it was because there was that downtime before the show started. And I do have this thing of like when I go to a show and the show hasn't started yet, especially if it's like just like a bar show and the show hasn't started and people are there, I kind of like don't like that feeling of being like one of the people at that time. Because like when I go on stage, I'm trying to be like, okay, what are the things I want to say? I'll talk to anybody after the show is over, but before I go in there, I got to be ready to just go up on stage. And so like when my energy just starts resting, I always turn, I feel like, back into an audience member. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're about to go on stage and feeling like an audience member, it's just like weird. And even at that show, there was this comedian Wendy, who went up, and she was great. And I was just like really impressed just to see people out at the show and just to see like a new comic really just do her thing. And I'm just like, man, this is so cool. And I basically just like gushed over how happy I was to just be on stage and how happy I was to see this comic who I met personally but never saw her perform, and kind of be, in my own head, like, okay, I met this person and they seem cool, but are they funny? Because I don't really want to, like, get to know them if they aren't funny, and that's such a weird piece of shit thing to say, but, it's like, hey, man, I love comedy overall, and if we know each other from comedy, we all could be doing it, but, like, sometimes if someone's not funny, sometimes I get in my head about it, where it's like, can I tell that person that they're not funny, or do they think that they're funnier than they are, or do they have all these other things, managers and agents, just all this stupid politic bullshit that doesn't even matter in this conversation. But so I'm on stage for like 10 minutes and I'm just like gushing over comedy and how lucky we are to be here and authenticity and all this shit. Basically, long story short, it was a bomb. It was a bomb. It was so bad. Oh my God, it wasn't bad to me, because I was actually happy that I went on stage and I said what I had to say, but I know that it was so authentic, and with comedy, you kind of want to hear, I guess, especially at that show, you wanted the vibe of like, oh, let him be mad, or let him do this, or perform for me, dance. And like, no, I'm just giving you what I'm giving you as an artist. More so artist than a comedian at that time, and it was just such a rap. But what was dope was that after the set, a woman came up to me, and she and I just got this deep ass conversation, because she was like, yo, what you did really like touched me. And I was like, what? Because first, you're like, oh, you trying to holler, but it's not a holler, but hot piece of ass. So, and I'm talking about myself, because I was looking good that day. So when she comes up to me, I'm a little apprehensive, but then as she continues, because I was doing like some of the stuff about sexual harassment and consent and things like that, when I did throw some bars out there, she was like, I never thought of consent and sexual harassment, all these things in that way before, and you opened my eyes to something that I never considered, and now it's making me understand and appreciate certain things in the past. I was like, oh wow, that's great. But that's what I want comedy to do. Like, I want you to laugh, but I also want you to leave with something, right? And I think that's like a really hard task to put on myself, especially when we're in this world of 2019, 2020, where it's all about content, make stuff. I'm not just trying to make a bunch of stuff. I know that's what you do. The fear of irrelevancy, but it's like, man, I've been in obscurity for 10 years, man. I think I just might be getting my shot. So all the shots that I'm going to take are going to be ones that I feel I can make and worth trying. And if I miss, I miss. But even if I miss the shot, that's going to be beautiful. So anyway, I do that. But after the show, I go home and I'm just feeling bad, because that bomb, it's sitting with me. It's just, it hurt my soul. It was like, there was a comic who had headlined the show, and I've known her for forever, and I was like, I'm still farther along in my career, but like, stand-up wise, like, I would objectively say I was like, I guess, like the funnier comedian at one time, and I think she's really funny. I think she's kind of finding her footing, but like, when I'm watching, I'm like, oh, what she's doing is funny, but it just feels like a humorous rant. There are no real like set up punchlines and jokes, and it's just really humorous rants. But I can't take away from what she did. But when she left, she didn't acknowledge me at all, and that pissed me the fuck off, man. That pissed me off. I mean, and it pissed me off because, like, it was like, yo, I know you as a person on a personal level. Like, we're all comics here. We have good nights, we have bad nights. And like I said, I crushed at the show a few days ago. So me bombing here wasn't a big deal. But like, to be ignored felt away. And then all I could think about was, all right, well, if I had crushed the show, would that still be the same vibe? Or maybe because I bombed, was I just a little like off my grind? Or because I had smoked before? It was like all these different things going through my head. But I just took it upon myself to say, you know what, I gotta find another spot. So I ended up doing this show on Saturday. That's it's a weekly show. It's at this barbershop in the Lower East Side. It's really dope. Check it out. It's, if you want tickets for it, if you're in the city, it's called greatestshowever.com. Check it out. It's a show at a barbershop, really cool. But I came in there to to destroy. And it was like one of my favorite sets that I've had in a while, because it was like I had something to prove, not to the crowd, but to myself. And it just felt so good to just go into a show knowing that I had that purpose and to just execute on that level, and it felt good. And, you know, I hope to just take that with me to all the other shows I do. And I also just made a new rule, like I'm not going to, you know, smoke before getting on stage, because, like, you know, it's just not good. Like, I'm not in my 1,000% mode of focus. And, yeah, I just really felt good about that. Trying to make sure I'm staying on the same train. Told you about the shows that happened. And I think I did everything I wanted to say about, like, marriages and partnerships. I mean, I can keep going with partnerships and marriages. When you're in a relationship, like, when you're single and you're trying to get in a relationship, sometimes you want to get in a relationship because you just don't want to be by yourself. Like, you want somebody to love you, you know, like, or you want to love somebody. You want to be able to, like, you know, you got those days like the Christmases and the Valentine's Day and all those couple things, and you want to be a part of it. But sometimes it's like yourself. Are you yourself happy? And it's a weird thing, because, like, I think in my case, it was like when I was single, I was just out here having fun. And with my girlfriend now, it's like we have like this really, really crazy story of how we kind of like got together and what was going on with us. But now that like we've had some years together, and it's like I'm in my, like, I guess my new act of life, and just being like calm. It's like I really appreciate her, not as like my lady, but just like as a person. You know what I mean? Like to have somebody to really bounce ideas off of and just be my truest self. And I think, you know, I think she's always been her truest self, and it's just like every day we learn more things about each other and we share more shit. Like, it's just like a really beautiful thing. So, like, if you're listening to this and you're single, there's nothing wrong with being single, and I encourage you to be single until you know, while you figure out what makes you tick. Because I think my only regret about anything in life, and it comes to relationships, is that, like, I never really just, like, duked it out myself. I'm just like, you know what, I'm cool. I think it's something that traditionally, you know, and I'm 36, like, traditionally women would always say, like, oh, I'm finding myself. And you're like, what's that mean? You just don't like me. But it really, it's just like taking some time to just focus on them and do what makes them happy. And it's so important to know what makes yourself happy before you try to find happiness in others. Like, you should always have happiness in yourself first. So, you know, that's just a nugget of nothing that I hope resonates with some of you guys. The other thing I want to talk about, and I really should have took notes about this, is I had like the craziest dream I've ever had in my life last night. You know, so I was in DC, and we left like super early Tuesday morning, and I barely got any sleep on Monday night because I was at my pop's house, and I was like sleeping on the couch. It was just like all messed up. But I was in such a deep REM sleep last night. I had a dream that basically, I don't know if you saw the movie Us by Jordan Peele, but the idea of the shadow version of yourself coming to reconcile with you. And that's what my whole dream was. And I don't really talk about it much on this podcast, but I do have, like, sometimes when I sleep, I have, like, I call them night terrors, where it's like I will start like shaking violently. It looks like I have a seizure sometimes, but that's just because I also have sleep paralysis. So my eyes will open and I will see everything around me, but my entire body is asleep. And because I can see and part of my brain is awake, it's like I feel like I'm suffocating, because it's like, wait, I know I'm awake and I want to get up because I'm up now, but I can't get up because the rest of my body is just like dead weight. And it is just the scariest thing. And I've had it as from a kid into my adulthood, and I never knew what it was. Sometimes I think the medication I was on would help, but also with that medication, it's like I feel like I'm not like the best version of myself or like the realest version of myself. It's just like all these things. I'm gonna do like an episode about medication one day, but I think I'm gonna get like. I gotta get like a specialist or something, like a pharmacist on, just to like talk about medications and ups and downs, pros, cons, and all that shit. But yeah, in this dream, it was like I was my like shadowed self, who was just really just me. It's not like, like the negative version of me, like, like everything that's dark about me was light. It wasn't like that. It looked just like me, and just kind of like in the dream, I was having like these seizures. I was spazzing. I was going from different worlds, bouncing around and being with, like when you have those dreams and you're talking to someone who doesn't look like, let's say, your sister, but that's supposed to represent your sister, like just weird shit like that. And I'm sorry, the story could be much better, but it was like a dream. I'm trying to recount it. But the main point of it is that I realized for myself that like there are things that sometimes I don't like about myself because I don't feel like I feel like it's uncool, Like it's weird. Like even me doing this podcast, I feel like it's the coolest but uncoolest thing in the world. And there's no such thing as cool. But in the sense of like, I have a podcast where I'm right now just talking to a laptop with headphones on about a scary, crazy dream I had last night. And I'm like, that's such a loser thing. Ugh. But on the other side of it, I'm like, well, I don't think a lot of other people are talking about their stuff like semi-openly, and even like the things I talk about on here it's like real, but there's some things that I keep to myself, but I'm trying to be as open as I feel that I can be, so it reaches somebody. I also feel like sometimes I get very like narcissistic where I think about myself a lot, but I think about not myself like the now version of me, but I think about that version of me who was like just exposed, and I think about how other people might have that versions of themselves and like would be all like caught up in whatever world they're caught up in, and they don't really have an outlet. So it's kind of like, hey man, I'm living this life, it is what it is, but as I'm doing it, I do have to, contribute back for the people who feel like me or who might need this, Sorry, I just touched the mic. Next week's episode is going to be so much better. I'm going to be in the studio. It's going to sound great. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, just the idea of me doing this podcast is like I'm proud of myself, but like I need to get better at like promotion and all that. But I really don't know if people listen to it. Let me talk about that. I know I get plays, I know I get streams and stuff, but like I really don't know if people listen or hear. And another part of me is like, I don't know if I want to know if people listen to it or hear, because it's like it's kind of it feels so kind of freeing to just put something out and not know. You know what I mean? It's like when I tweet, you can see the retweets and you can see the favorites and all that. And then sometimes what happens is you get into the cycle of, okay, well, if I tweet, it's not good if I don't get retweets or favorites or whatever. And it's the same thing with podcasting, where it's like, well, if I put these episodes up, if people aren't listening, then what does it matter? But it's like I know people are listening. I don't know if they're like digesting it, but I hope they are. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Okay, it stopped. But there was an alarm going on outside. This is just a mess of an episode. I don't want to keep you guys here. I mean, it hasn't even been like a 30 minutes of an episode, but I do know that I will be giving a weekly episode, every week this year, and I'm not letting up. They all don't have to be 30 minutes. They don't have to be an hour, whatever. You can go listen to some past ones. But before I go, I do want to say this. Right now it's July 10th. In 2 weeks, July 27th, Saturday, July 27th. I have like 2 big shows in Brooklyn. And the reason I'm promoting it is because, one, it's the show that I'm doing, I got a promo. But the other side is that, like, I really don't get in my production bag as much as I used to. I'm doing Comedy Outliers on July 27th at 7 p.m. at the Bell House. Now, what's really great about this show is that, and he'll be, I think I'll try to get him on the show for next week, but me and Brandon had, like, our ups and our downs, but we did this show, Comedy Outliers, for about 6 years straight, every month. The greatest showcase in the city, and we got a little bit of press, but I think it was like the optics of 2 black guys running an alt show with like no kind of like real industry support. It kind of got lost in the sauce, but people came out. We sold it out many times. It was beautiful, and we're doing it one time for the summer, and I'm really happy about that. We got a great lineup that we're keeping on under wraps until the show. And the same day, July 27th at 10 o'clock at Union Hall, me and my boy Dylan Stevenson, we're bringing back Super Video Bros. It's basically a comedy show where we show music videos with guests and we talk a bunch of shit. But we also write and produce like a sketch live, and it's really, really, really funny. So, and both of those are in Brooklyn, and you can check all that stuff out at my website, yomikebrown.com. And yeah, I think that's it. And really, I just want to say thank you to everybody who listens. I really, really, really appreciate it. It gives me something to look forward to every week. I usually look forward to going into the studio to record this stuff. But these last 2 weeks, I've been giving you the most raw form of a podcast, old school way, and I hope you guys like that too. Yeah, and I really hope you guys do. And if you don't, just stick around. It'll get better. Yeah, I think that's it. So shout out to Christy, the engineer, who I'm going to send this to, who's going to send it to Tyro to upload. It's like 3:26 now, like literally, and I'm about to wrap this thing up, and they'll send it, they'll upload it, and then you'll get it. I'm sorry if you messed up your day vibe. As a person who's a fan of podcasts myself, I usually look forward to when new podcast episodes drop of things that I love. I'll be like, oh, it's Saturday, this thing's going to be there on Saturday. And I know that, like, if it's Wednesday and you're looking forward to this and you haven't heard it yet, you might be like, come on, Mike, like, what the fuck? But it's really just such I don't want to say hard thing because that sounds like I'm bullshitting, but there is an obligation to you guys and to myself to get this done. And I give myself leeway sometimes because the reality of it is that, like, there is no real compensation for me doing this other than me doing it. And I try to do that when it feels right and always have something out for you guys on Wednesday. I know that this podcast is not something that's going to, like, change the tide of my career or anything like that. But I do think that it does help people, and it is something authentic for people to listen to that isn't news-based or whatever, and it's just something dope. And, hopefully, like, years from now, it would be something that people can be like, oh, if they're a fan of mine, or like wherever my career might go, or whatever my life might fucking go. I know I talk about career stuff a lot, but like, because that's how, this is all I do now. But wherever things may go, you could be like, oh yeah, that's still the same Mike. You know what I mean? For the people who really do fuck with me. And I also kind of like that too. I like that, like, it's like this you goody mom. It's like a secret society, I kind of like that. I really fuck with that because I want to do so many dope things just in life. I'm very introverted, but I feel that this is like a fun thing for me to do, and for anybody who really rocks with me like the long way, to, if I ever see him and they like bring it up and we talk about it, it's like I can instantly vibe with you as a person and see you as like not just a fan of my comedy, but someone who's kind of like invested in what I'm doing. And I guess because like my own might be narcissism narcissism. It might be super self-deprecation that I have, as a comic or as a person. Nonetheless, it's just good to be like, man, there is like true authenticity in the world beyond the Instagram filters and the Facebook posts and all that shit. But yeah, so that's it. So anyway, shout out to Chris T. Shout out to PVD doing the music. Shout out to you listening, Loudspeakers Network, and all that stuff. I myself am going to try to stay cool. You might hear Mr. Softy in the back. I might have to holler at Mr. Softy. I don't know. But I hope you guys are good. If you like this episode, please hit me up. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and all those things at yomikebrown. Or you could hit up You Good Pod. And, take it easy. Hope your week is good. Oh, real quick, what did I do for the 4th? 4th of July was dope. Me and my girl did like this. We went to this rooftop joint. It was cool. It was different for me. Not different, but I kind of missed the old like vibes of just being like with a bunch of homies playing dominoes. But this was more of a like watch fireworks and like be really relaxed and not stush. But it was cool. It was really cool. It's just different. It was just fun. So yes, shout out to Callie and Lucas for letting your boy and actually letting my girl bring her +1. I'm such a dumbass. Anyway, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And that's it. You goody mob. Peace.